Hello there guys. In this video I'm going to be building this BA-64B Soviet armoured car in 1/35th scale. As you can see, this is from Lanmo Model, which is a company that I hadn't heard of until recently. I saw this model pop up on an online model shop here in the UK recently, and the price was fairly decent. I think it was about £20, so I thought I'd give it a go. According to ScaleMates, Lanmo have been around since 2023, but they've mainly produced accessory and conversion sets. Although they have also released this Chinese Expeditionary Force Sherman and a couple of armoured cars. And in addition to this boxing of the BA-64B, they've also produced this captured German version. As you can see from the side of the box, we do get a full interior here. That includes the driver's compartment, the interior of the turret, and the complete engine. And this is my kind of full interior kit because it should be possible to see all of that interior through the doors or the hatches when the model is complete. On the side here we have a couple of paint schemes which probably won't be much surprise to you. It's a World War II Soviet vehicle. It's going to either be green or it's going to be white over green. For the most part, I know there are a few exceptions to that. A bit of background on the BA-64. It was developed in the second half of 1941, although it didn't enter mass production until early 1943. It was known for being cheap and reliable, and actually overall it was the most common wheeled Soviet AFV of World War II, with over 9,000 being produced in total. It was used throughout World War II, and later it was exported to various Soviet client states, including North Korea, where it was used in the Korean War, East Germany, Bulgaria, Romania, and China. The initial BA-64 version was improved to the 64B version, which we have here in this kit, and the main improvement was a wider wheelbase. Most models of the BA-64B, including this one, were fitted with a 7.62mm machine gun, although there are a couple of modifications which remove the turret and include a PTRS anti-tank rifle instead. Also, in many of the reference photos, you'll see these big chunky off-road tyres. This model features road tyres, which were often added by the Soviet crews to save fuel when travelling on, well, roads. If you did want the off-road tyres, I imagine you could probably find some online. Inside the box we get this relatively small instruction manual. We get this additional card here which contains 3D printed parts, photo etch parts and the decals. And the camouflage printing on the background of that reminds me of old Dragon kits. They used to put their photo etch parts on a piece of card like that. Inside we've got a single bag which contains the main 3 sprues, 3 separate sprues for the tyres, and then a clear parts sprue. On the inside of the instruction manual we've got some background to the vehicle in both English and a variety of other languages. And then straight onto the instructions with a sprue map, which actually is really useful because the part numbers on the photo etch are quite hard to see on the fret itself. We start with building the engine. That goes into the chassis. The suspension builds up. By step 5 that is finished, and then we move on to the interior in step 6. All the way through to step 9 there. Then we add the wheels, put the top of the fighting compartment on, and then a few final bits and bobs, including the turret in the 13th and final step. So I didn't start at step 1 of the instructions because I felt like building the interior before I built the engine. So I started with that, and the very first piece that I had to remove from the sprue was one of the side doors. And that illustrates something that I came across quite often in this kit, which is slightly awkwardly placed sprue gates. You can see here hopefully the sprue gate is not just on the edge of that door, but it actually encompasses both this side of the door and the far side. So you've got to clean up not only the edge, but the inner and the outer of that door. Now that's not a huge deal, but it is slightly more difficult on these thin edges to get a clean look. When it was cleaned up, however, it did go in perfectly well, and of course we do have the option to pose those open, which I will be using. That ejector pin mark that you can see there gets covered by a map pocket. On the other side, the door didn't quite fit as neatly. You can see I'm struggling to get it in there, and it seems to be that the edge of the hole in the chassis is not quite clean. So a bit of scraping away of that flash there with a knife, and the door fits okay again. And then we build up the interior of the fighting compartment with the battery. We've got a fire extinguisher which will go in there later, and what I believe are rounds of ammunition. For each of these pieces we have somewhere between a rough hole for guidance and no guidance pins whatsoever. So you do need to check the instructions carefully to make sure you're getting them in the right place. At the back of the vehicle we have what I believe is a fuel tank. This seat is a single piece. It slots over this gap in the floor, but I left it off for now, partly for painting reasons and partly because I wanted to make sure I got the fit of this to the chassis perfect. I had a feeling this seat might foul on something, so I left it separate. We do get quite a lot of photo etch with this kit, and most of it I didn't use. So for example, these hinges here are designed to replace the hinges on the doors. I didn't do that, I simply cut the door plastic hinges in half and attached them separately so the doors could be open. In World War II, Soviet troops were notorious for stealing traffic cones, and this model includes one. Moving on to the engine, the construction has quite a few parts, but it's fairly straightforward. We do get to use our first 3D printed part here. So here we have a comparison between the plastic and the 3D printed resin. Not a huge difference really, but I used a resin version because it was there. There are a couple of mistakes in the instructions here though. C26 and C27 are the wrong way around here, and bear in mind this is the first step of the instructions. And then this C48 here has been mixed up with this part here, C14, on the next page. That's quite easy to spot because the parts are quite obviously different. The suspension and drivetrain builds up nicely enough. The fit was a little bit tight. But everything clicked into place in the end. And here we can see how the floor of the vehicle will fit over the chassis. And indeed how the top section will fit over that. And to be honest, that's the bulk of the kit made. There are a few exterior points to add. We do get an axe with some moulded in brackets, but I decided to put the photo etch empty brackets on the side because I know how I'm going to use this vehicle and I want the axe to be separate. There's my door with the cut in half hinges, so it can be posed open. And then we have the wheels, which have an interesting construction. Good detail here with the lettering on the rims. These pieces still need cleaning up of course, but we've basically got two side pieces, a centerpiece and a hub. You can see there I've also added those photo etch pistol ports. and then I've left the engine hatch separate for now. It is a bit of a tight fit, so it would need gluing closed, I think, but I'm tempted to leave it slightly open, even though that might be a bit strange, a vehicle sort of just randomly with the engine cover open. I think I might leave it open to show the engine detail inside. Probably the most difficult fit was the turret, and the floor of the turret just didn't quite fit inside the single piece walls, which did necessitate quite a bit of sanding just to get that down to size. In the turret goes our second and final 3D printed part. These vehicles had a 7.62mm machine gun, and the 3D printed version is far superior to the plastic version. And there we go, guys, that is my build of the Soviet BA-64B Armoured Car. As you can see, everything is just dry fitted at the moment, but I'll be giving this a coat of primer and then painting the interior and the exterior in a future video. I hope you've enjoyed this quick build video. If you have, please feel free to leave a like or a comment below. I want to say thank you to all of you for watching, and a special thanks to my Patreon members and YouTube supporters. If you would like to join Patreon or YouTube, there are links in the description below. Thank you once again for watching, and until next time, have fun modelling.